So, how do you capture the attention of your audience right from the start of your presentation and in a way that truly lights a fire both in the head of your audience and in their hearts? That's what this session is going to focus on. And just as readily, once you have your audience in the palm of your hands, how do you then influence them to do the things that you want them to do, including dousing the fire out? Today, I'm going to take you through 3 sessions, each of which are about 15 minutes long. And we're going to cover 3 areas, 3 tools, if you like. They're going to help provoke the way you currently present and help you to do what I just demonstrated, which is grab attention from your audience straight away. And they are, as you can see, A, B, C, D, flame, and 4 ways to hook your audience. 4 ways to hook your audience. Now, I'd like to start by asking you to use chat for me. We've got something like 25 people, I think, in the room at the moment, 26 actually. And I'd like you to use chat for me and just write the letter Y or N when you present formally in business. So these are business presentations, B2C or B2B. When you are presenting formally in business presentations, do you feel stress and anxiety in advance? Could you put in chat for me a Y if you are someone that finds presenting in group a bit stressful, bit anxiety creating, or N for no. I'm in my element. So using chat for me. Nice old mixture. And it is a real mixture. The majority is yes. So we've got a lot of yeses. And I'm going to be very specific in why did I ask that question and what am I going to say as a result of it. And it's this: the fear of presenting. There are 2 facts I'm going to tell you about the fear of presenting. The first is psychologists tell us, psychiatrists tell us, that the fear of presenting for some is the same physiological reaction in your body as the fear of death. It creates the same massive anxiety in advance of doing something that, as intelligent human beings, we should be very comfortable doing. So the reason I share that fact is I just want to call out to those that said yes, that the majority of people suffer from, at some stage in their adult lives, the fear of presenting. And that is called glossophobia, as in the eyes gloss over, our brains get scrambled and we can't remember what we were going to say. That is a symptom of glossophobia. And again, the science tells us that it's usually about 80% of adults that at some point in their lives suffer from the fear of presenting, to the point where it is physiologically damaging in some way, certainly stress creating. And that actually a majority of us always suffer a part of fear of presenting, so that there is an anxiety that is beyond normal, that our hearts are racing, even though it's just a peer group and we're making a relatively straightforward presentation. So I wanted to call that out because one of the experiences we have as consultants on this wonderful subject, presenting with impact, is that in most cases, when we sit with an audience and we are training the skills of presenting with impact, the vast majority of those audiences suffer from fear of presenting. Some terrified, but do it because it's part of their job. I was working in Asia 10 days ago, and we had leaders coming in from every country in Southeast Asia. So we had a large group. And I asked the group the similar question: who generally doesn't really enjoy and suffers some sort of stress presenting. and we were working with a group of 15 senior leaders, and
Oh,
14 said, yeah, it's not my thing, but I do it because it's my job to do it. So part of what I'm going to do today is help with some preparatory tools that help for you to manage how you feel about presenting so that you can be the best version of yourself when you do. Now, I know that most people in business have either not had proper training on presenting with impact or have forgotten most of the rules. And the reason I say that is I see people presenting every week of my life. It's the nature of what I do as a coach. I watch people present online and face to face, and probably 99 out of 100 do not do so with impact. 99 out of 100. Is that me exaggerating? No, it's not. Because if you certainly yourself present with filler words, you are automatically reducing your impact. So what's a filler word? It's words that I'm using to reorientate my brain to think, what am I going to say next? So it's, well, you know, it's obviously, uh, uh, uh. Now, if any part of the way you present now resonates in any way with what I've just demonstrated, this session will make a difference. And you'll notice that as I communicate, I'm doing so without filler words because I've trained my brain to speak only when I'm ready to say the words that I want to say. So 3 sessions, 3 inputs from me, and I will get a little bit of response from you using chat mainly, given the numbers we have now, 32 of us on this call. And in each section, I'm going to end the section by a call out to each of you to reflect on yourself as a communicator and what will you do with what I've just told you. So I'm going to be quite provocative, I hope, and added value in that lovely sense. And at the end of each section, say, what will you do with this information? So it's very personal, this session, and you can reflect on how you currently present in order to do that. So the first thing I'm going to share with you is A, B, C, D. A, B, C, D. Now, I'd also like you to reflect when you normally present. So in fact, remember the last time you presented in business, which frankly could have been this morning in a meeting online, couldn't it? This morning or during this week, or maybe even last week, the last time you were sharing information in business, a presentation, formal or informal. I'd like you to remember that situation. Now, in preparation for that situation, what was the first thing you thought? So someone said to you, could you present on that? Or you decided, I'm going to make a presentation. What was the first thing you did? Try and remember. So you're preparing and thinking about it. What's the first thing you think about in preparation? So using chat for me, in a real scenario, what's the first thing you did in preparation for the communication or presentation you made recently? It's the first thing you did in order to prepare your communication and presentation. Thank you, Bertrand. You're first up. I'll come back to that. Thank you. Charlotte is saying, my messages to land, gather all the information. These are very logical things, aren't they? Capturing the key points I want. Yep. Okay, thank you. And we've got a lovely blend in the answers here of 2 different things. One is content, information, research. What am I going to say? And the second main theme I'm hearing is understand my audience. And the essence of ABCD is to make sure we only do one of those things first. And it's the A, not the C. So AB before CD. AB before CD. Now, this may not be what you naturally do. It's certainly the way I naturally used to do this, prepare a presentation. Someone would say, Mark, can you present on your current sales figures? Something like that. and I'd get my computer out and I would start a PowerPoint presentation. That's basically how I did it for most of my career, which is, what am I going to say and how am I going to say it? PowerPoint. So I would go C&D. And it's actually fundamentally flawed. If you want to impact your audience with real presence, you start by thinking about your audience, and you think about them in lots of different ways. What do they already know? What do they need to know? What is their character? What is their culture? What language do they speak? So Bertrand Jacob, who was the first to answer with audience, well done, Bertrand. Bertrand's first language, I believe, is German, even though you speak multiple languages fluently. But your first language, I believe, is German. You speak beautiful Portuguese and English and. But if my audience does not have English as a first language, I have to think about how I communicate, don't I? Fundamentally, I have to think the speed of what I say, the quantity of what I say, and what impact do I want, given that people are probably translating as they listen. So A before B. Now B becomes interesting. And you may notice the spelling of behavior here has no U, and that's deliberate. It's the American spelling of behavior. The English spelling is with a U, but I've deliberately spelt it without a U because this is not about your behavior. This is about your audience. What do you want them to do when you are presenting? And that can be, and I've done it with this audience, by the way, I want you to be looking at me if your cameras are on. I don't actually need your cameras to be on. So that's not a behavior I particularly need. It's nice for me because I can see your faces, but I don't need it. What I need you to do is listen and show me that you're listening in some way. So when I ask a question in chat, I get lots of answers. That is a demonstration that you're listening. I also want you to engage, which is why I use chat, because you have to engage in some way. So this is incredibly conscious from the presenter. A and B before C and D. Now, I'll give you a very pure example because I had very, very little time to prepare. It's an extreme but pure example of AB before you do any C stuff, right? I have the privilege of working with the Swedish football team. This is many years ago now, but it's a team in Stockholm, AAK Stockholm, fabulous team, the Black Army, go Stockholm. And I was working with them as a mental coach, and we had a very good season, which was great. We're in the Allsvenskan, which is the #1 league in Sweden. And we came to the very last game. And if we won the last game, we were to be Swedish champions for the first time in many years. It was very exciting. And I had a role in that, which made it very exciting. And I got tickets for the game, and I sat up in some fancy seats. I thought that's going to be great fun today. And I got a tap on the shoulder, and the communications manager said, Mark, can you come down and do a quick interview? Tell us what you've done this season that's made a difference. I thought, okay, who's my audience? It's going to be a television audience. Okay, I'm thinking audience. We walk down the stairs, we go down a lift, and we come down to the playing level. And we come up to the tunnel where the players are coming out, and I'm led out onto the field. So I'm walked to the center circle, right in the center spot with a camera crew and the microphone. And in that moment, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, audience, audience, audience. Swedish football fans, do they care one jot what some English bloke thinks? No. Do they want me to speak? No. They're going to have to hear me because I'm out there. But if I think about my audience and what I want them to do, what did I want them to do? I wanted them to be happy. I want them to cheer. Right, okay, there it is. The behavior is cheering. So the interviewer said to me, we're here with Mark Francis, who is the mental coach for the team. And he's done a great job this year, obviously, because we've got a chance to win the league. And I'm going to ask him, Mark, what have you done that's made such a big difference to us this season? Well, it's nothing to do with me. The reason we are where we are is because we have the best fans in Sweden. cheering, chanting, dancing, fireworks. That's the behavior that that sentence engendered. Lots of noise, lots of celebration, to the point that we were totally drowned out, and I didn't have to answer another question. We walked back out and then we watched the game. So I know that's a very simplistic example, but in the pressure of the moment, I went, oh, A and B. And therefore, my words were so short and so relevant to my audience that I got the biggest 35,000 people reaction that I've ever got to any presentation I've ever made. So, A, B before C and D. Now, in that context, I'd love you now for yourself to think about a real communication that you've got coming up. Could be later today, could be tomorrow, in business, where you have to communicate a message. That can be in a normal meeting, could be in a Teams meeting. It's not a formal big thing, or it could be a presentation more formal. And what I'd like you to do is just take 2 minutes to reflect from the audience perspective. What information is fundamentally what they need from me? What style would be appropriate? And what behavior do I want to inspire in them when I am presenting? So 2 minutes just to reflect personally. A, B, C, D, right, A and B, for your next important communication. I'm going to shut up now, give you a chance to think. So I'm going to ask you, when ready, to use chat and just capture one thing that will definitely be different as a result of your A-B thinking in terms of how you present. In chat, what one thing will definitely be different because you're thinking A and B before C? Okay, so using chat. Thank you, George. It's a really important one, this, to acknowledge and respect what they already know. And Kate is saying, conscious that the first language is different to mine. And when you think that way, Kate, classically, I'd love you to share with us, how will that change? Because their language is different to yours as a first language, how will that change?
Twofold, really. One, because I'm Irish as well, I have a tendency to speak a little bit quicker, and maybe get a bit excited. And it's also, I'm very conscious now of not saying after the start of this meeting.
Thank you. So it's that lovely, the filler words, I called them, didn't I? That
Yeah.
I say less and I say less better, and maybe slower, but maybe more pauses to help my audience digest the information. think about it, and then here comes the next key message from me. So these are deliberate behaviors to enable people who don't have English as a first language to be able to understand first time fully. So that's really cool. Thank you. I'm looking at some of the other elements of chat. Instead of focusing on my delivery, I want people to be looking at me and thinking about, and I also want to focus on what I want them to take away. Because the other element of behavior, and I'll move my head now. This is my planning template, and if you'd like one, just ask me and I'll send this to you. What behaviors do I want them to do while I'm speaking, but what I want them to do afterwards? What's their takeaway, to use your language, Courtney? And so all of that is part of the plan for any presentation I do, A and B before C. And in all of my experience, it dramatically changes how much I speak and the medium I use to communicate. It dramatically changes how much I speak and the medium. I hardly ever use PowerPoint slides. But when I was at the conference in Asia, I had 95 people in the room and I used PowerPoint slides. I didn't use many, but I used them because we had a big screen, and my normal style of flip chart would not work with 95 people in an auditorium. So I changed the D of delivery method based on the audience size. So as I said, we're going to go through all of this session where I'm hopefully provoking how you currently prepare for and deliver key messages. And the next one is crucial in the world in which we currently live. And it is, how do you show up online? How do you show up online? Now I'm going to give input first, and then I'm going to ask you to try and do something connected to the input. The input is spelt out in 5 letters that spell the word flame. Hence why I started with a flame right up front as well. So it's a visual image and memory that flame is crucial. First, the F is for frame, and it's how you frame yourself in your computer on a Teams call or Zoom or WhatsApp, whatever it is. And you will see that my head is central, but I'm 2/3 of the way up. And crucially, the camera, which I'm now going to point at, look at my finger is going upwards. The dot that is the camera is slightly above my eye line. You see that? It's slightly above my eye line. This is completely deliberate because it means it feels like I'm on the same level as you, but I am definitely not above you from an eye line perspective. If you want to present with impact online, it is simply critical you do not do this, which is what I see way too often, is I've just got my computer on my desk, haven't I? And so I'm just talking down at you. And that is not a great way to influence your audience, even though it's convenient because I've got a table and I put my computer on it. It does not show respect. So frame 2/3 of the way up. So I'm just re-establishing. My camera is slightly above or at least on a level with my eyes. That is the frame. Now, lighting. This is really important. And again, I see a lot of people just don't even think about this, and they create shadows on their face. The window, the natural light for me, is directly behind my camera. If you can do that, you get natural light on your face. It's really cool. But where I am today is quite dark outside. So I've added a light, which if I turn off, see the difference? And so I needed some, apart from the natural light, I needed some extra light to create absolute clarity, no shadows on my face. I know that if I look up, I get the light in my glasses. So I need to keep my head relatively at that level so that you don't get too much glare in my glasses. So lighting is crucial. If you want to influence an audience, they need to see you as if you are sitting in the same room. So that's lighting. Next up, audio. Now I do have sound reducing pods, and this is important for loads of reasons. If someone is talking near me, it is a distraction, not only for you as my audience, but also for me. And I also just want to focus on you as my audience and not in any audio distraction. So having good, strong audio is simply vital online. Next up, messaging. Now, Kate wonderfully said, with my Irish accent and an audience that does not have the same first language as me, I need to be clear with what I say, maybe say a bit less. So message is the M of flame. And I'll move out the way, use your screen for visual messaging, background changes. Now I'm demonstrating that because throughout this session, I'm using background changes. I can obviously use no background, but with no background, I've still got the messages I want you to remember. So say less better is a crucial message in any presentation. It's behind me. The three sections of this session also behind me. We've done ABCD, we're now doing flame, and then we're going to do 4 ways to hook your audience. So I'm using visuals to reinforce my message. And this is crucial. I'm going to do a little quiz in a moment that reinforces why visuals are essential. And you'll notice I've done lots of different ways to do it. I've got cards which I hold up. I've changed the background. If I want you to think about the detail of flame, then I will put it on my background rather than make you wait for a PowerPoint presentation. So that's message. The E is for energy. And the key here is, where is my energy? And my energy is in my audience. So I am looking at how you are looking at me. So for example, George is looking intently at me, which is delightful, George. It means you're listening and thinking. So those are behaviors that matter to me. And that is what I'm trying to generate, is an energy that's in you, not in me. So E is about connecting with your audience and engaging, energy, transfer, and messaging, which is again why I'm using chat quite a lot. I'll use a quiz because it drives energy up in your audience, so you don't just have to listen to me. So that is setup. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do, I'm going to ask you, if you have your camera on, I'd like you to turn it off actually, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes to change one thing in your setup. Could be your background, could be the level of your head, could be where the camera is on your, relevant to where your eyes are, could be your lighting, could be anything that I've covered in flame. And I'd like you to change one thing. And if you can put your camera back on in 2 minutes, please do that with the changes made. So again, I'll stop talking for 2 minutes and I'll see you, if you can turn your cameras on, in 2 minutes. I just want to say thank you so much. Everybody's been putting things in chat. Karen and Sabina have asked for a copy of the template of ABCD. I will be sending that to you. Thank you for asking. There's a glorious input around neurodiversity. And Peter Cooper is on this call with me. Peter and I have a wonderful program that we're working on at the moment with the UN. We're working with the Institute of Migration. And we did one session this week and we got feedback from the audience, from someone who said, when you said the word "the," in front of the program. What exactly did you mean by that? Because I am neurodiverse and I do not understand. Please tell me what you meant. So it was a glorious message to me, and I was the presenter at the time, to say less better, because I moved quite fast through the introduction and I used the word when actually I meant actually specifically a program. And so it wasn't clear to a member of my audience who was neurodiverse. So say less better. So I'm going to now turn off my pinned photograph so I can see everyone more clearly and how you've made changes. Let's have a look. I'm having a good look at the group and spinning through. I'm seeing lots of people at eye level. Well done, if that was the change. The lighting is strong. Thank you, where your cameras are on. I'm seeing some great work, some background changes. Well done. Got some with audio equipment. I see Mark Dockery with fantastic old-fashioned headphones, Mark, iPods, just earpods. Yeah, looking good. Looking good. Great. I'm just spinning through that. I'm going to give one more input about flame and setup. And this is the biggest change that I recommend you do. I think it's the hardest. It's the least natural for us. I've been doing it all the way through, but I'm going to call out exactly what I'm doing. When I am speaking to you, I am not looking at you. I'm looking at the camera dot. And so it looks like I'm looking at you for you. Remember, the E of flame is energy. My energy is on you, not on me. However, as a human being, it's way more comfortable to look down at faces that I am familiar with. So at the moment, Mark, you're at the bottom right of my screen as it happens. Mark Dockery, we've known each other for many years. And for me personally, it's reassuring to see a friend. It just is. But it's not what matters. What matters is my message is landing with you. And therefore, when I'm trying to do that, I look straight at you by looking straight at the small dot in the screen. The minute I stop speaking and ask you to go on chat or ask you to speak, I take my eyes off that because it's quite straining. And I look actually at you and I relax my eyes. But if I want my message to land, I look directly at the small dot, which is slightly above my eye line. So these things are super simple, but they are super important. So whether you are the leader of a team trying to land an important message, or you're a salesperson, I know we've got salespeople on this call, and you're trying to convince a customer to say yes, at the point at which you're saying those key sales language words, boom, straight into the camera. The other thing that you'll have seen me do, and it was right at the start, I know not everyone was on the call, but when I introduced this session, I started by saying, how do you get full attention from your audience right at the start of your presentation so that you light a flame in their head and in their heart? Now, that's how I started. We'll talk about starts in a moment, but actually it's completely deliberate to have a visual message which is impactful, reinforcing my verbal message. It's completely conscious. Now, that's a stark one because it's so bright and bold. But equally, I can do it by changing what I put on the charts behind me or on the card that I put up in front of my audience. So wherever I can, I use visuals. Now I'm going to do a short quiz before we talk about the technique of hooking your audience at the start. We'll talk about inputting some technique to help you. But before we do, a short quiz. And we're going to use chat with this quiz so that, again, we can interact in that way using chat. Question number 1 in the quiz. In minutes, what is the attention span of your audience online? So on average, business to business meetings online, internal meetings online, what is the average attention span of your audience in minutes? Getting a lovely range. Thank you for all of these. Thank you. There's a lot of input there. In the main, we've put too many minutes there. Some have got it exactly right. It's 3 minutes and 12 seconds, according to a recent survey online for online impact by McKinsey Pulse. It's a survey and it's 3 minutes, 12 seconds. 3 minutes and 12 seconds, goodness me. It means only for us as presenters, you need to change the dynamic of how you are presenting about every 3 or 4 minutes. So ask someone to say something, get something in the chat, change your background to a different background every 3 or 4 minutes. And it changes the visual impact, and therefore it changes the energy in your audience. If you just talk at people, especially if you're reading off a PowerPoint slide at people, you will lose them after about 3 minutes. They will sort of drift. Their brains will stop engaging and your message will stop landing. So that was question number 1, 3 minutes, 12 seconds. Question number 2, if you just verbalize, so you make a presentation and you're talking, after 1 hour, so 1 hour after you finish speaking, what percentage of what you said is remembered by your audience? So words only, chatting, presenting, being an expert, 1 hour after you finish talking. Thank you for all these answers. Thank you. We're mainly around 10%. We're mainly 10, 12, 15%. Yeah, Grace is saying 10, 10, 10. It's 7%. And that, of course, you can change all of that by using some of the techniques I've talked to you about. Be incredibly visual. Say the same thing repeatedly and emphasize the words when they matter. All of that makes a difference and increases the percentage. Next question. In terms of the sensory perceptors in our brain, the sensory receptors in our brain, what percentage are for the visual sense? What percentage of the sensory receptors in our brain are for the visual sense? It's super high and you're there, you're around about there. Well done. There's a debate around this. It's at least 80% and it can be as much as 93%. So well done, everybody. We're in the right sort of range there. So incredibly, when you now reflect on how we normally present as human beings, we normally don't use many images. We normally talk a lot, and many people read words off a slide to their audience. And because we have visual receptors in our brain and our eyes are amazing, you can read a slide quicker than people can speak it. So nearly every time you put up a slide with lots of words on it and you attempt to read it out, your audience has finished reading and you're still near the beginning. So you've lost them. You've physically and mentally lost your audience immediately if you put up a wordy slide and read it out. And unfortunately, most presentations I see in business do exactly that. When the slide could be purely visual, if you want to use a slide, or it could be purely visual if you want to use the background of your wonderful technology. We're in Teams now, so I could talk about 4 different color energies, and I just make sure I've got it on my screen behind me, reinforcing any message that I want to give. So, next question. If you tell a story, so you're communicating in any form, and you tell a story which is relevant, 1 week after you have finished that presentation, what percentage of your audience remember the story? Grace is saying 70, Miles 50, Kate is 70, 90 Priya, 40, 80, 60, 80. Right, good. You're in the right ballpark here. It's 2 out of 3. It's about 67% of your audience. If you tell a story which is relevant, 1 week later will be able to recount the story. Especially if it touches the heart as well as the head, it is transformationally impactful when you present. So, and I'll tell you why physiologically this works. We're wired for story as human beings. And when you tell a relevant story, which touches the heart as well as the head, lights a fire in the head as well as the heart. What happens in terms of your hormones is that your oxytocin goes up. Your level of oxytocin goes up. Now, oxytocin, if you didn't know it, is the chemical, the hormone that is produced at the point at which a baby is born. There is a massive flow of oxytocin from the mother to the baby because it is the relationship connecting love hormone. So when you tell a story, oxytocin levels goes up in your audience, and at the same time, cortisol, which is a stress creating hormone, if you have too much of it, goes down. So the audience oxytocin goes up and their anxiety, stress levels, and cortisol comes down. So there's a physiological reason to storytell. Here's the challenge we face. In our upbringing, certainly in mine, no one taught me how to tell stories at school. When I went to university, I didn't get any storytelling training. And certainly since I've been a businessman, I've never been on a storytelling course in my whole life. And yet I've just told you that 1 week after you've told a relevant story, 2/3 of your audience remember it. It makes people feel better. It makes people feel more connected to you as a presenter, and it reduces stress levels. So it couldn't be more powerful, and no one's ever told me that. So the last section of our time together today is, how do you start with a real bang? How do you truly hook your audience right from the very start? And it's crucial. It's crucial because, well, you tell me. I'd like you to tell me, why is it simply crucial that you hook your audience right at the start of your communication and presentation? So I'd like you to verbalize this, not using chat. Who would like to call out for me? Why is it crucial we start a communication presentation with a hook?
I'll happily go if you can
Yeah,
hear
go
me.
for it. Yeah.
Hello. I think we got it all wrong. I think COVID has made, can you see my presentation? Are my slides showing? Am I sharing my screen? And you've lost all engagement and impact in that very second. Um, having something that's interactive and something that's engaging immediately is important because you've got them for that first 3 minutes. Now, obviously, what I'm learning today is changing it up every 3 minutes potentially is the right answer. For us, one of the things that I want to be doing more of is opening with either a story or an anecdote or a stat. Did you know, or something like that? Maybe the did you know stat is my offering to this.
Yeah, really good. And yeah, I think COVID didn't help at all. And I think we're all used to going on Teams meetings and Zoom calls now. It's part of our daily life. However, if we haven't understood how to impact an audience, we are the sort of, I'll just go straight to a slide. That most meetings online start like this. Hi everybody, thanks for coming. Where's Tom? Has anyone seen Tom? Should we wait for him? I don't know. Let me text him. I'll text him. I'll text him. Yeah. Oh, he said he's stuck in traffic. Yeah, he's coming. Right, I'm gonna. Can everyone see my deck? Can you see my? Yeah, no. Because Bob, yeah, you're on mute, mate. That, that that's how most sessions start. And what it means is you're saying to your audience, you do not have to engage for the first few minutes because we're not really doing anything. So you can drift. You can do emails or texts. You can have your phone. No one knows. I've got my phone, so no one knows. I'll sort of be doing that. And you get no real full attention from the start. And so that's a behavior that we as the presenter have to change and start with impact. Now, I'd like you to think about, I'm going to give you 4 main ways, the 4 main ways I would recommend that you use to hook your audience. There are 4, and I'm going to go to no background to do this. I'm going to show you a card. In my experience, the 4 most impactful ways to hook your audience: a surprising, insightful fact, a relevant story, a question, and or a visual. Now you can choose the one that you like the best, or you can do A, B, C, D. And you go, okay, this audience that I have, what start would be the best? What start would be the best for my audience? And how do I want them to react to that start? The example I can give you, which I think is probably the most impactful, I think, of all of these that I've ever done. I was asked in Australia to train a group of nurses in the skills of selling. Now, yeah, that audience does not want to learn the skills of selling. And I'm a nurse. You know, my passion, my vocation is helping people to feel better and get better. It's not to sell anything. But their role had changed, and the organization had said, we want you to do a little bit of influencing in the hospitals as well. We want you to be a salesperson as well. So I had an audience with folded hands, and, you know, I don't want to be here. So I thought I have to tell a story about how a nurse also picked up the skills of selling. And I told a real story, a true story about a nurse called Felicity who became the top salesperson because it helped patients' lives. That was the gist of the story. And I told that story at the very beginning. Now notice this is hook an audience. So it's not, hello, my name is. It is, I'd like to tell you a story about a lady called Felicity. And she's a nurse. And off goes the story. So the first words that came out of my mouth was a story. And I definitely saw a change in the behaviors, physical behaviors of my audience, from closed to opening up. At the end of the day, we talked about the start because it was part of influencing skill. And I said, how did I start? And a lady at the front called Jolene said, you started with a story about Felicity. She remembered. And I said, yeah, can I just ask, how impactful was it? And she said something like, I can't remember the words. She said, it totally changed my mindset about the whole day. I turned up under sufferance. I didn't want to be there because my boss had told me I got to be, and I didn't want to change my job and no. And she said, in that instant, I thought, oh, I want to be like Felicity. So it isn't just storytelling, it's other elements. I could use a fact which is insightful and shocking to my audience and changes their brain pattern. I could ask a question that makes them think and therefore engage with me immediately. Courtney, as you were up last and you are a sales leader, what other ways would you hook?
See, we are our business. I'm not doing any plugs. Don't worry. I know we're not paying for advertising of this session, but our business is very much an interactive business. So beyond those four, and I'm actually keen to get your feedback on this. Beyond those four, we actually like to share the physical use of our touch points. So we build ad tech. Okay, so we make ads shoppable. So we like to either share a QR code or share a link with whoever we're talking to. The problem with that is you're driving people to another device. They click on the link, they play around with it, and you can't help if they've got Instagram or WhatsApp or anything like that, looking at something else. So the intent is there. Whether that's the right execution or not, we're open to feedback and improvements. But giving something physical and interactive and putting our technology in their hands is what we tend to do as well.
Really, really good. Excuse me, that's really good. What other examples do we have, team? Other ways to hook? Physical, use the tool. What else?
One example, Mark, I had was of a salesperson whom at the beginning of COVID sent his customer a real sample of the product he wanted the buyer to buy, put it in a box and said, do not open until 2 p.m. on X date when he had his meeting. And then when the meeting began, he asked the person to get the box, asked him to open it, and then began from there.
Love it. Something preemptive. One thing you've done, Peter, I've seen you do this with customers. Could you bring a citrus fruit, please? And you've started by saying, cut it in half. So you've got the audience to do something physical immediately, and they don't know why. So it's intriguing. It's like, I wonder why we're doing this. Oh, I've got a lemon, and oh, look at the juice on that. So you've got an engaged, energized audience immediately and intrigued. So those are brilliant examples. So I'll come back to the main four. Thank you very much, Peter and Courtney, for sharing yours. I mentioned earlier, and I said it's not an exaggeration, 99 out of 100 presentations I see in business in some way don't start with one of those. They don't hook me. They go usually something like, hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. I know it's really busy for everyone at the moment. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mark Francis. That's how most presentations start. Then they turn to look at the PowerPoint slide that they put up and they go, here's the agenda of what we're going to cover today. So we're doing all of that by habit, by experience of watching others do it. Everyone does it, and it's usually PowerPoint slides. And so your audience is still not engaged or necessarily listening, and are definitely in some way distracted, because we've conditioned each other to realize the first minute or two is meaningless. Hi, if you don't know me, thanks for being here. The toilets are on the left. All of that stuff is blah, blah, blah. So I'd like you to think about a real presentation you've got coming up. Could be this afternoon, tomorrow, next week, an important one for you. And I'd like you to decide not only which one, but a little bit more detail on what, a little bit of substance. I'm going to give you just 1 minute. Which one of these would have the biggest impact on your audience? It's not the one you prefer, the one your audience needs. Which one? And then a little bit of detail. What fact would you use? What question would you ask? What visual or story would you use? So 1 minute, working for yourself, real presentation. Choose one of these four, and how would you execute it? 1 minute. There are a couple of questions in chat here. One from George about how do people feel about icebreakers. To an extent, if the icebreaker is really smart, it is also a hook, isn't it? It gets full attention and engagement straight away. So an icebreaker is a type of hook. Just make sure it isn't something that some people in the audience go, oh no, not this. Depends on your audience. Yeah, Grace, I love that. Two things. I did double hook this morning, or this as we started this. I started with a question and then a visual hook with the fire. So I used visual and question. So more than one style is really good. Just looking at the chat, that's great stuff. That's great stuff. So you'll have noticed in this session what we've done. We've covered 3 different areas. So we've gone ABC, flame, and 4 types of hook. And in each one, I've brought them to life, I hope, with some examples, and we've shared a bit of thinking on them. And at the end of each section, I've said, right, how will you apply it to something real? So what I hope I've done in this session is provoke how you naturally communicate, energize you to think, I could do that better, and truly inspire you to transform how you present every time. So that was my intention. In terms of what's next, from Uspire, we've got a brilliant session on pricing from my colleague, the brilliant Jonathan Bruff, and that's coming up December the 5th. And in chat, Chris will put that, so you've got a link to that. We also have online presenting with impact. If you'd like to see me more often in a module, you can buy that online in our website. Or of course, we do one day presenting with impact programs. Chris, any other builds from you on that?
Yeah, no, thanks, Mark. It's just really to reiterate your message about the next session, which is JB's, Jonathan's, on the 5th of December. It's the 4th in our Build Your Leadership, Commercial Leadership webinar series. We've had 3. This is the 3rd. The 2 prior were building your commercial vision and building your sales story. And I know that a lot of people on here will have signed up to all 5. But if you haven't, please do so. You can sign up to JB's using the link in the chat, and we would hope to see you on that on the 5th of December. The one following that is in January, and that's with Chester.
That's brilliant. Thank you, everybody. And I hope that this has lit a fire for everyone on this call.